Hello.
How's it going, Steve?
I'm sorry I missed your last show when you came through. I was an hour and a half away and I couldn't get there, and I felt bad because people that I know were there and they're like, "How come you weren't there?" And I'm like,
Oh,
"Fuck."
that's you know what? It was a cool show. Deep Cuts is a really cool place, and we're playing it again in September. So
I know there's bands calling me to see if I can get them on the bill, and I'm like, I'm not connected to this whole thing. What are you calling?
sorry. You're always going to be my manager at some
Right.
level.
When you call to get a bass amp, oh, we don't have one available, but can we get on the bill though? Joke, joke. You know how bands are. I love them all.
Love them all too.
Okay, so I got to ask you so many things because I haven't
Bring it.
talked to you since May 30th, 2022 is when you're on the show. It's been three
Oh
years.
my gosh, everything has changed.
Okay,
Oh,
first I got to start with you live in Seattle now? I mean, I didn't know that until the other day, and I'm like, when did she move to Seattle?
I kind of quietly slipped away and did my thing, and I moved here. Actually, it was late 2022, so it must have been right after we talked later that year. And I've never looked back. This is like the coolest place. The music's great.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew me before. I was never a desert person. I grew up in Michigan and Chicago and stuff. And so going to the desert was always hard and it was just too hot for me. So coming up here is like kind of coming home. It's like rainy every day and there's rocky beaches and there's water and the music scene is insane. And not that I'm here very often, but it's a great place. I don't want people to know because I don't want anybody else to move here. But it's
I love Seattle.
oh my God.
It's been a while since I've been there, but I was there in the 90s, but still it was great.
Well, you were here in the heyday, but I feel like it's having a little resurgence again. So I mean, the music scene here is so unstoppable. Everybody you meet is playing in 20 bands, and they're all great bands, and they all go to each other's shows, and there's no backstabbing and no competition. It's like this crazy scene of community. I can't really describe it. It's really neat.
No backstabbing and there's bands involved.
Where does that happen? I know. No.
What made you pick Seattle? I mean, did you have, I mean, like, I know you have a whole new lineup and everything. I want to get to that. Does that have anything to do with it?
Nothing, nothing, nothing. My job in Phoenix was finally coming to an end, and after all those years, and I was like, where do I want to go? I can kind of go anywhere. And so my plan was to go to France, actually, and I had the long stay visa all kind of ready to hit the button to make that go, and um, I gave away all my furniture, and like everything was ready. And a month before I went, my lawyer back in Phoenix was like, you know what? The tax situation for expats right now is really bad for some places in Europe, and France is one of them. So don't do it yet. Just wait. Just wait a little while longer. We'll see if the structure changes. And so I was like, okay. Well, I was going to move to Brittany, which is my favorite place in the world. It's like, it's kind of like here. There's rain and there's the cliffs and the rocks and it's just this gorgeous place on the English Channel. And that's always where I wanted to be. So when that fell through, I was like, where can I go in the US that's kind of like that? There's either Maine or Boston or there's Seattle. And every time I've toured Seattle, I've just loved it. And I already just sort of knew people here. I have family up sort of in here, lots of cousins in the area. And I don't know, it just kind of made perfect sense to me. And so I did like a scouting trip, came up here, found an apartment. And now I live like in this little tiny A-frame overlooking the water, and it's just like this beautiful situation. And I'm never here, but I love it when I am. So it's great.
I love Seattle, but I wish you would have picked Boston or Maine.
No,
But,
that was number two on my list. I love
oh
Boston.
my God, that would have
I
been
love Boston. And
amazing.
it's never off the table because I can do anything now. So yeah, I'm here at the moment, but anything can happen.
Well, the other major question is I have to ask you about the lineup
Yeah.
because you have a whole new lineup now. And I walk me through that. Is it just about moving parts for you now, or is this a permanent lineup?
It's hard to say, honestly, because the thing about the darts is we've played sometimes 200 shows a year for the
Mm.
last since we talked last. we've done about 200 shows a year, whether it's domestic, international, and that's a lot to ask of people, and not just in their personal lives and their kids and their whatever their day jobs are, but it's also just a lot to ask of people as people, like
Yeah.
to get along for that many dates and to, sleep in weird places and deal with jet lag. And there's just a lot. And to be honest, it's not everybody's cut out for it or really even wants it. So there's two types of personalities. There's a personality that loves to play music, but isn't really a touring person. It's just not their cup of tea. It's hard. It's just hard, especially after a month on the road. It's hard. And so there's that person. And there's the other kind of person that loves to tour, but isn't necessarily the best team player when it comes to, I mean, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
You've been on the road with me, like every day is hard and you have to be ready to help with everything, everything. And not only that, but be a positive face every day. And it's not for everybody, it's hard. And so I don't like to get into any like details and band gossip and all that stuff. That's not really who I am. But it just wasn't for everybody. And so I came to the end of the last tour and I'm like, I need to make some changes for my own mental health so I can keep this going at a level that I want to do it as often as I want and with the kind of positive, happy attitude that I want, which had kind of been falling by the wayside towards the end of the tour was really, really hard last year. So I decided it doesn't have to be like this. I can find moving parts, and I was already doing it with my new Black Viiolet project and it was working really, really well. And so yeah, I happened to tap Ricky, who's back in the band after all these years. My original darts drummer is back on board. She just happened to be coming to an end with her run with Death Valley Girls
Oh,
after
Ricky's permanent now in the band?
she isn't with anybody else at the moment, but I never say anybody's permanent in anything ever because I've never had anything permanent in my life. But yeah, so who knows what permanent means, but at the moment she's doing all the dates. So
I love her.
I love her too. And
Been trying
it's
to get her to do my podcast for a long time, but
well,
she's
she's a
very
busy,
busy.
busy, busy person. She just got off a 3 week the San Sebastian hike through Spain with her mom, and like she's always doing stuff, and she's like a cool, really interesting person. And I also ran into when I was on tour with the Darts last summer in Germany. Somebody came up to the merch table and said, "Oh, you're living in Seattle now. Do you know this band 38 Coffin who does kind of this horror punk thing that you do?" And it's fronted by two women. And I'm like, "Yeah, I do know them. They're amazing." And so I came back from that, and it turned out that the bass player from 38 Coffin, Lindsay, was involved in this weird go-go dancing thing that I got thrown into also. And we became friends. And it was like so obvious that she should be in this lineup. I just asked her, "Do you want to like go on tour for the rest of your life with the Darts?" And she's like, "Absolutely." And then like that just worked. And I don't know, a lot of things just fell into place at the right time for everybody, in this lineup. And so guitar wise, I don't think no, you hadn't. The last time we played Boston at Deep Cuts. Becca Davidson, who plays in our label mates band Spindrift. She's
She's
been
good. I know
she's
her.
she's really like
Yeah.
she plays this cool, weird style of whammy bar, spaghetti western type stuff that you wouldn't think fits exactly with the Darts, but it fits so well. And when she subbed in last summer for a week on the East Coast, it was like this is a no-brainer. She brings so much texture to the sound that we didn't have before. So that was easy too. So that's what happened. It just kind of fell into place.
Okay, so I don't know if there was anything going on, so you don't have to answer this question or not. But the only thing I was wondering about was Christina, because you and her
Yeah.
played together for so many years.
Almost over 20 years. Yeah, 2005, right
Did
when we
she
met.
just have enough of it?
No, and like I said, I don't want to get into the gossipy side of
Okay.
things
All
too
right.
much, but
That's all
let's
you
just
can.
say it sadly after all those years it really kind of didn't end well. And
Oh,
we
I was
we just
hoping
came
you,
to the
I was
end of a
hoping that wasn't
long,
it.
I know, we just came to the end of a long run together that just after all those days we were both different people. By 20 years later, you're different people. You have totally different lives than when we met. a lot has changed. I'm sober, I'm vegan. My life is totally different, and her life is different, and so we had gone in different ways. And by the end of this last tour, it was just really obvious that we kind of weren't wanting the same things for the band and for ourselves even. So that was
No more martinis for Nicole?
it's been years. It's been since 2019.
Wow, good for you. That's
Yeah, it's
good.
been the best thing I've ever done. And, and there were a lot of reasons, but bad decisions was one of them. So, yeah,
Okay,
it's
no, this what I was going to ask you next has nothing to do with Christina, by the way. I
okay.
don't want it to make
No,
it
no, no.
sound like because
And
I
that's you know what? I don't fault anybody for wondering. I really don't because it's sad for me too, but that's the
yeah,
way it is.
because I was going to mention, trusting your instincts and removing toxic elements, and I'm not trying to relate that. But can you share a time when following that advice made a huge difference in your career or creative life, or is that right now?
That happened. I mean, it's still happening on a daily basis. I feel like I'm still learning what's good and what's bad for me because, we get into some habits in our lives that are really hard to give up and they're very subtle sometimes. But anyway, I'm still working. But 2019, I just hit this sort of, it was just from the beginning of COVID, right? And everybody was depressed. Everybody was going through stuff. Well, you and I probably even talked about this in our last talk, but I hit like this rock bottom depression that I had never experienced in my life before. It was so, so bad, Steev. And I knew that I had to make some major changes or I just wouldn't come out of it ever. And so one of the first things I did was I gave up booze and I gave up meat. And then I gave up, all animal products that I could. And I started working out every day. And I moved from that house I was in Phoenix. I moved to an apartment that was close to work so that I wasn't commuting an hour and some minutes every day and like crying both ways because it was so hard. And like trying to run this band and do this day job. It was just such a hard life. And I just tried to like minimize like what do I really need in my life that's good, and I
Hmm.
rebuilt it like from the ground up, like okay, let's start from scratch, let's eliminate everybody and everything and let's build it. And I knew I needed music, so I just kept writing songs. And we weren't touring or doing anything because it was COVID, so it was a great time to just like regroup. And I started writing this Black Violet stuff, which I didn't know was going to be Black Violet, but I was like, I'm just going to write anything that comes into my head. And I wrote thousands of songs over these 3 years, some of which was trip hop and some of it was country and some of it was I don't know lounge and a lot of it was fuzz guitars and whatever came to my mind I just did it. And I sent songs to Jello and I sent songs to Bob Hogue, who was my producer still. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do with any of this, but here it is, here's my brain, and I threw it out there. So that was the music side of it. It was the just total rebuild all by myself. Like I wrote, and I was always kind of writing all the parts for the bands, but like I really did, like I wrote trombone parts and I wrote, string parts and I wrote trip hop beats and stuff I'd really not really delved into too much. I did it hardcore and got really into it. So that was the rebuild there. And on a personal level, the rebuild was like, there were a lot of friends. You meet a billion friends when you're in bands, right? You meet people on the road and you meet people in your just local world, and I had to like just cut everybody out and go, who do I really want? Who's really a good influence on my brain right now? Who's positive and wants me to do good things with my world and not bad things, like who wants to do that journey with me? And it was kind of nobody. It was like my kids, and that was kind of it. So my daughters became like my best friends, and I called them every single day, and they called me, and that was really cool to rebuild that
Yeah.
relationship. And so I spent like a year just doing that. I didn't have any like romantic relationships for like 3 years, just nothing. And it was great. It was like a cleanse, a life cleanse. And then I retired from the day job, and that was a huge thing too, because that was hard to juggle all those years. And then it was just the music. And I'm like, this is amazing. I finally have the life. I can finally build this the way I want it. Move to
I
Seattle.
love that you're devoting all this time and you're going on these long tours. I
It's all I ever
love it.
wanted. You know
I
that you were there from
love
the
it.
get-go. Like it's all I ever wanted. And now, through the process of all of it, I met this cool boyfriend of mine and lives in Germany. And we're doing this long distance relationship and the band is cooking and Black Viiolet is going really well and I'm opening up new venues and new areas in my brain and I don't know, things are really knock on wood. They're it could end any day, but like it's right now it's awesome. I cannot complain.
Wow, there's so many questions I have now. Well, you mentioned Jello, so I'll do that first. How did I remember we talked about this before, but I remember when you met him at a Love Me Not show and you asked me to call him, so I get to talk to him on the phone. But a lot has happened since then. How has he changed your whole view of everything?
You know, Jello is a constant. Jello is Jello. Jello, he never changes, and that's a good thing because he never should. He's a legend for a reason, you know. Um, I would say over the last years, I mean, he co-produced Snake Oil, the album with us.
Yeah.
So he was a very big presence at that point in time because he was doing the record with us. And we were just coming out of that COVID time and he had gone through all my billions of songs and he was helping me edit them. And it was a lot of Jello and me together doing stuff. And then after we did that record, it was like we had Bob producing it, we had Jello producing it. It was a lot of maybe even overthinking it on my part, if you ask me. And definitely, if you ask Christina, it was a lot of overthinking because she likes to go right in the studio, bam. And so it was a lot of
She
production.
doesn't like pre-production.
Right. And we weren't used to that. And it turned out to be a beautiful, rich, amazing record that we all love. But coming out of that, it was like I still had all these other songs that I had written that didn't get put on that record that I really loved and even Jello really loved. And I was ready to go right back in the studio because they were ready. These songs were ready. And I didn't want to produce them. And Christina definitely didn't want to produce them. And we were like, let's just go somewhere new and do this thing. And Mark Rains, who actually did all the Death Valley Girls, a lot of their records that I love, like my life-altering record is Glow in the Dark
Yeah.
by Death Valley Girls. I've listened to that record till it's like the grooves are transparent now. Like I've listened to that record so many times, and it's gotten me through some really rough times in my life. I love that record. So first thing I did when I was ready to record these things is like, who did that record? I'm gonna find out. And I finally read the back of this record after all these years, and it was Mark Rains in LA. And he's done like Marilyn Manson and Tanya Tucker and a billion people, Hoover 3, a billion bands that you love, right? And so I, out of the blue, wrote to him thinking, just like I wrote to Jim Diamond all those years ago, I'm like, he's never going to write to me. This is stupid. But he wrote back immediately. He's like, yeah, come on in. We'll do this in a few days. And so in between tour dates, while we were in LA, we just ran in there. In 2 days, we did all the band tracks. In one day, in 6 hours, I did all of the vocal tracks for 13 songs and the backing. Like, we just nailed it.
Wow.
And Mark was great. Mark was like, I know you don't want this to be overproduced, so I'll just kind of sit back and you take the reins and just do what you hear in your head. And if you want something from me, let me know. I'll be
That
here.
was Boomerang you're talking about
That
now,
was
right?
Boomerang.
Okay.
And it also it's a completely different style of record in my mind than Snake Oil because of the production is not being there. But I love it. I just love it. And it's
It's the
so
same lineup too for those two records,
same
right?
lineup, exact same lineup.
Melissa Jackson on guitar,
Yep,
right?
Melissa
Yeah.
was still playing. Yep. And yeah, she came out to LA and Emily's is so good. Oh, she brings such like a darkness to everything that I just love. So yeah, those two records are just fabulous and they were just
Yeah,
bam,
they are.
one after the other. That's why it was called Boomerang. One of the reasons is we just went right back in. So yeah.
You've been part of both all female and mixed bands. Have you noticed a shift in the music industry's attitude towards female-led acts since the early days of the Love Me Nots? Has anything changed? Or I know you're loved in France and other parts of Europe. It didn't surprise me when you said you might move to France because they seem to latch on to you the
Right from
most.
day one with the
Yeah.
Loving Us, that was the first signing I ever had in my life was in Paris after like our first show in Paris was the Loving Us to Bad Reputation. Yeah, there's something about France, they get me. I don't know. I get them. I don't know. It's something weird. This weird connection. But it kind of, I think once France like did it and put the music out there for me, the rest of Europe got it too, you know? And so
Yeah.
can go to Copenhagen and pull a crowd now, and we can go to Sweden and pull a crowd. We went to Finland and we had a full room. Like it's crazy where how the word spreads in these underground circles, when it goes well. But I have France to thank first. Yeah.
The female thing, do you think?
Yeah, there are so many. I mean, in my mind, there have always been incredible, powerful female-led
Yeah.
bands. Of course, we know this. Um, and I feel like maybe it was harder back in the day than it is now for them to be taken seriously. To be honest, I don't feel like it's a problem anymore. If anything, I hate to say that I think in some places, and I think a lot of guys would agree, it almost gives us a leg up because if you're good at what you do and you happen to be female, people are just naturally kind of interested in that still. I don't know why. We're just humans doing human things, but for some reason that still draws well. And I don't know. It's I don't want to call it a gimmick because it's not. We happen to be female, but
Mhm.
like that's just who we are. But it if anything, I think it's been helping us in the industry. And
Don't you think women have kind of taken over the music industry anyways with Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo and
you know
Sabrina
what,
Carpenter?
in some ways, yes. And I don't know if I think they were always there. I think they're just getting they're just maybe noticed more. I
Yeah.
think they were always there. The Shaka Khan, they were always there behind the scenes.
Shaka Khan. I love Shaka
Yeah, just
Khan.
doing
Rufus.
incredible things from day one. I mean, Billie Holiday, there were people always there. It's just now you see them and their presence is made known and they're allowed to make the money and work the business end of it openly, when maybe they didn't. In my world, the person who's really, really doing amazing things in my mind is Amy Taylor from Amyl and the Sniffers, who's
Oh, love that band.
of course, and she kind of personifies this. I'll do whatever the fuck I want, and I'll do it to the highest degree. I'll do it as well as Iggy ever did it, and I'll run the business and I'll tour everywhere. And we met Amy. I can't say I know her, but she came to a darts show in Chicago early on when her band was playing at the little bar down the street next to us, like
Wow.
before. And that wasn't that long ago. That was in 2022 or 2021. I don't know. It was right before all this stuff with her happened. And so she's real. She's so real. And it's so cool to see in the garage, I don't know what to call it, garage, whatever you want to call it, the rock world, to see someone like that just nailing it right now.
We're always gonna call it garage rock.
We're always
I,
going to call it garage. It's garage, yeah.
Coincidentally, I just watched Emil and the Sniffers on KEXP. They didn't do it in a studio. They
No,
did
they
it.
did it outside in the thing,
It
yeah.
was amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking it's radio. First word out of her mouth, fuck. But she didn't fucking
She's
care, man.
shameless, just shameless.
I'm
But
glad you.
it's great because it reminds us to be free in what we do. And it's in this day, we need that. We need that reminder.
I'm so happy you mentioned them because I think they're the best punk band right now in the world. I
They're
really
so
do.
great.
She is so
My
good.
dream.
When she
My
does
dream
that
work.
bikini song, I just lose it every time, man. It's just great. It's just who would write a song like that?
It's the writing and it's the delivery. Like she doesn't hold back in the way she presents it. It's just all out there.
Yeah.
It's great to watch.
Can you talk about I know Nightmare Queens is like a greatest hits package with two songs on it, but I'm wondering about the two songs because I love both the songs, A Slight Edge Go and the No Love. But talk about those. Who did you record those with? There's no information I could find on Bandcamp
Yeah,
about
this is
that.
really cool. We happened our tour manager last summer, Pierrick Julien, is from Lyon, France. And he was our tour manager. He's the drummer for the Scanners and Les Lullies and a lot of great bands in France. And he was just our tour manager for that most of the summer. But he also has a studio in Lyon. And so as we were going through France, we were like, let's stop at your studio. I've got these two new songs. Let's just throw them down. And AT was talking about Alternative Tentacles was talking about doing a 7-inch split with the Darts and Tsunami Bomb. And so I wanted to have a single anyway to give to them for that split. So I'm like, well, if we're in there, let's just do two, because since we're all set up and the songs are ready. And so we threw these two new songs down and we did it in like a couple hours. It was just done. And yeah, so that was Pierrick, and he did everything. And that was he had just set up a brand new console, this huge like 36 channel board that he had never even there was no Pro Tool, like nothing was even plugged in. And we walked down there, he's like, give me a minute, I got to figure out how this all works. And he put it all together, and we did these two songs, and then we went back on the tour the next day, like when just kept going. And he sent the mixes to us, and the guy that masters all my Black Violet stuff, Stefan Taney in Marignac, which is near Bordeaux. He did all the mastering, and then Stefan also took all the old tracks that I wanted for this that are no longer available on vinyl. That was what brought me to this whole project, is so many people still want these older songs on vinyl. And Dirty Water Records didn't want to repress yet, and AT didn't want to repress anything yet because it's a tough business, and they're busy with their new releases. So I'm like, you know what? How about a comp? Actually, I think it was Ludo, my manager in France, was like, how about a comp of the old stuff? Let's put it out on vinyl. And then I'm like, well, how about we put these two new songs on there too? They're ready. And so it all just came together
That
like
was
that.
a smart move. Like
Yeah,
break
and
up,
they're all
make
remastered because Stefan remastered all of them for this record. So they're beautifully done now. They sound amazing now.
yeah, Graveyard and Breakup, and those old songs are real great. What lineup was it that recorded the two songs?
It was Christina on bass and Mary Rose Gonzalez Beef on drums, the touring lineup, and Lou Sordier, who was the French guitar player who did the last two European tours with us, the long tours. That was her first foray into the studio with us, and she nailed it. She's great. She's a great guitar player.
Can hardly wait to see the liner notes on the new compilation because there's a lot of different people playing on different songs, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of musicians. Yeah, there's Ricky, there's Michelle is on the early songs.
Michelle.
Yeah, yep. And then me and Christina and Melissa, and yeah, the only person not represented yet on a recording is Becca, and we're going to the studio in August, so she'll be on the next ones.
Oh,
So
well, I want to get back to the darts in a second, but I definitely want to talk about Black Violet because I gotta talk to you about that. But before then, I have to tell you this. You're gonna like this.
okay.
Someone once said you haven't made it as a rock star until you start signing your fans' body parts. Okay, I have to ask you about the butt signing clip I saw on TikTok. That looked like a lot of fun. It was a nice butt too, so that must have made it easy.
Not the
How did
first but yeah.
it wasn't your first butt you
It
signed?
wasn't our first but no, no. Fans are pretty shameless. We've signed pretty much everything over the years. And yeah, people come to merch and
Is it
you know,
women all? Is it men or is it
it's
women?
meant we played, was it last year? We played Courchevel, which is a famous ski resort in the south of France, in the Alps. And there's this huge like biker festival under the ski lifts. And we were playing there. It's freezing, it's raining. The rain is going sideways, and we're playing this huge stage. And we run off the stage, and we run to the merch tent, and it's sleet and snow. And, people are standing there literally with their pants down, waiting for us to sign their asses as we go, and their foreheads. They're walking around the whole festival with our signatures on their faces. And like they're crazy. It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was a really funny clip. I had to ask you about that. Was that overseas, that woman that
Yeah, that was in Vannes, France, just 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
well,
Yep.
2 week you were there 2 weeks ago? Oh
Yep. And
wow, I didn't realize
the
you.
tour, the next date is this Thursday. So we start back up for the 60 days starting on Thursday.
Oh my gosh. Your musical journey spans a lot of different genres because, classical piano, garage, rock, trip hop. What was there a defining moment when you realized you were ready to shift into the Black Violet moniker? I mean, when did that come? I can't say if I knew for sure that you were going to ever do a solo thing, but I don't think I ever put it out of my mind that it wasn't possible.
Well, whenever I see a piano in a piano bar on tour, I jump on it and I play this Why Don't You Do Right, which is this old jazz standard made famous by Jessica Rabbit in Who Framed Roger
Yeah,
Rabbit.
yeah.
So I start playing the song and I sing it, and wherever I go, the Carlisle Hotel in New York City, wherever there's a piano, I'll just jump on it and do it. So it's always been my thing.
You've put clips up like that before. I
Yeah, that
remember
that
seeing
song has
that.
always been my
Yeah.
thing. And so I think that was the genesis where I was like, I should take those during COVID. So I had COVID brain, granted, but like I'm like, let's take these jazz standards that I love. And I used to play in a jazz trio when I was in law school. All around Tucson, we'd play these jazz standards. So I learned a lot of jazz standards, weirdly. And so I thought, what if we make it sound like an old microphone and an old vocal part, but we put trip hop beats under it and groove it, and the upright bass, like send it through some effects and make it sound groovier. So it would be like what would be playing like in the coolest cafe you ever went to in Paris while you're drinking your espresso. That's what I want the soundtrack to be, right? And so I just started writing these songs over the years, but in COVID, that whole time I had time and I delved deep in it and wrote probably, I don't know, 20 songs that were ready to go for this project. And I didn't think they were going to go anywhere. To be honest, I was just killing time. And I was trying to I was trying to rebuild and open up my brain and do new things.
Right.
But then I played some of them for Bob Hogue, who was producing the darts and did all the Love Me Not stuff too. And he's like, this stuff is really cool. He was like, do you ever want to do anything with this? I'm like, oh, well, if I was going to do something, I would send it to Gabe Roth at Daptone Records, in
Yeah.
Brooklyn. And because what he did with Amy Winehouse's vocals and stuff, I would have him produce this. That's my dream. He's like, well, if you want to send it to Gabe Roth, you're going to need real horns. You can't have this synthesizer stuff. So why don't you send me the tracks and I'll hire some horn guys and we'll just throw some horns on it. And I'm like, really? Okay, why not? They're just demos anyway. So he took the tracks that I recorded on my kitchen table during COVID and brought the best trumpet player in probably on the West Coast, Danny Torgerson. He tours with everybody. And Danny came in, and Danny brought a sax player friend and a trombone friend one Saturday afternoon, and they read my charts, and they just threw on 6 songs, they just threw some horns down. And then Bob took all these tracks and made like a 6-song EP out of them. And it was just me on GarageBand and these live horns, and that was it. And we sent it to Gabe. Nothing happened, of course. That's fine. Whatever. But like after a while, the darts start touring again. And I happen to play one of these for Ludo, my agent in France. And he's like, Nicole, these are good. We should do something with these. I'm like, when do I have time to do anything with anything? And it's like, what if in the 2 weeks that you have off, this is summer of 2023, you have 2 weeks off. You're going to be hanging out in Bordeaux at my house anyway, while the rest of the band goes home for a while. If I got you a band and a rehearsal space here in Bordeaux, why don't you just try it? See what happens. And I'm like, oh, right. If you can do that, sure, no problem. But you know what? He did it. He got
Wow.
he got a full band together, 3-piece horn section, upright bass, drummer, the whole thing, a rehearsal space, this cottage out in the Bordeaux, like in the vineyards. And we just holed up there for 3 days and like lived there and played these songs. And it was like heaven. I'm like, oh my God, the first note, I was like, this is so what I want to do. I love garage rock, but this is so much fun. It was a blast. So I knew right then that I was gonna do something. And it's hard because it's a lot of people that you need to make this look and sound the way I want it. So we decided, let us just be a solo project. And that way, wherever I travel, it's jazz. There's charts. It's not like rock where nobody reads music. Everybody reads music in this world. So I can throw them the charts and they're ready to go that night. It's like in Chicago, I can use Chicago people, and in France, I can use French people. And it just rotates, and it's just and you get a different show everywhere you go, so it's really been amazing. I just love it.
I got to throw a couple of props at Bob Hogue because Emily Whitehurst. Okay, I'm going to connect a couple dots here. Emily was the original lead singer of Tsunami Bomb. I don't know if you ever
Oh,
played with them. I can't, I think you may. I think,
just for the first time, played with them in February. Yeah.
yeah, well, she's not in the band anymore, but she was the original.
Right.
Well, her publicist came to me and said, hey, she's got a new band, Survival Guide. I listened to it. I loved it. Bob Hogue recorded it. She went to Phoenix and recorded with Bob, and it's like a
Freaking
total
Bob.
like
He's everywhere.
it's not like Tsunami Bomb at all. So it's really interesting that Bob's able to help people like you and Emily with this different sound. Because
Oh my
he,
God, Bob does everything. Bob does rap records that would blow your
see, I
mind.
don't
Bob
get to
does
hear everything.
metal.
Yeah,
He
I
does
don't.
metal that blows your mind. He's won Juno Awards in Canada. Like he's done he's recorded the Budos band. He's recorded incredible stuff that you wouldn't believe.
He's a
His,
good drummer too.
and he's a well, yeah, you
Yeah.
saw that. Yeah, he's
Um,
metronome.
Is it hard for you to decide when you come up with songs and ideas whether it's going to belong to the Darts or Black Violet? Is it a mood, a lyric, something else entirely? What is it that makes you decide when a song's in your head what you're going to do with it? Now that you have an alter ego, you have like, but you did before. What was that other band? You had another band that was kind of a dancey
There
electronic.
was 00.
Zero Zero. Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. And yeah, that but even that had sort of a rock element to it because Michael was still playing guitars in it. So there was definitely a rock thing going on there. So that was an easier transition. This purposefully I didn't want any guitars ever. Like I didn't want any. I wanted it to be just sonically as different as I could muster. And some of the chord patterns sneak in there. I can't keep the spy riffs out of my head, but other than the riffs being occasionally the same, I think what really separates it is the beat,
Yeah.
like a darts beat is really is fiery, you know. Even a slow song has to be intense. And Black Violet is the opposite of intense. I want it to be, it's the live shows are becoming bigger and more, a little more bombastic just because it's fun. But the recordings, I want them to be chill, I want them to speak to a different part of your soul, where you can just light a candle and vibe for a second. And that's what I want. I want Black Violet to be. So yeah, if I start writing a lyric, if it's a lyric that calms you, it goes that way. If it's a lyric that fires you up, it goes that way. So,
Have you learned anything about yourself in like musically or personally about the solitude that you go into when you're doing the Black Violet thing?
I have learned so much about confidence, which I never had before. I never had musical
People like
confidence.
me would not have known, would think that though,
I
you
was
know?
always I was always the little Indian kid that got bullied in school my whole life,
I
and it's
meant on stage though. I
but
mean,
yeah, but that I mean that personality that you grow up with where you're just afraid of the world and you don't want to disappoint anybody and you don't want to ruffle any feathers and that is my personality, like in my core. And so getting up on stage and doing something like this has always been hard. Be- Before I used to go on stage in the early days of the Love Me Nots, I remember calling my 8-year-old daughter from backstage in Spain, right? It's early days of Love Me Nots. We're just starting to tour internationally, and it's terrifying to me at some level. It's always great once I'm on stage, I'm fine, but that beforehand is terrifying. I can't believe I'm going to do this. And I called my daughter and I'm like, hi, baby, I'm going on stage and I'm freaking out. I'm so terrified. And I just wanted to say hi. And she goes, Mommy, it's just music. Just have fun. This is the most sage advice I've ever gotten to this day. And she still tells that to me. Whenever I'm freaking out about anything, she's like, Mom, it's just like, just have fun. Just have fun. And I have a hard time with that, but that's what I've learned is, you know what? I can be whatever known if I'm known anywhere as like a punk person, but when I put on this ball gown and I get out there with my upright bassist in the middle of Germany and there's nobody there in the crowd, and it's terrifying. And then all of a sudden people start to move with it and people start to get it and they come a little closer and they listen to this. In Black Violet, I tell a story about each song before each song. So it's a
That's
very
cool.
personal thing. And they start to get into it. And afterwards they come to me and they're like, that it was so cool. We had no idea this was in you and we want to hear more of it. And we want to buy the record. And we, when's the next thing coming out? When's the next show? And it's slowly building this little separate audience. A lot of darts fans too, but this whole separate audience of people that don't know anything about me, and it's really neat. That's what I've learned is, just have fun.
It doesn't surprise me at all that you're doing this because I know that you're multifaceted from being in the University of Michigan band, to like doing the piano
Yeah.
stuff and everything. I know you're capable of doing anything. Um, if you could like fast forward like 5 years, say, what would you love to say about your music, your career, your creative life, about especially what has happened in like the last 5 years? Because you've really gone to another level.
I would say I'm not done yet. That's what I would say. I would say I'm still learning and I'm still writing a song a week. It doesn't stop. The Darts are going back into the studio with a full new record that's ready to go with this lineup in August with Mark again in LA. Um, it never stops. And Black Violet is in the middle of recording LP number two. We're going back to France in August to finish that with French musicians. And it every time I'm doing it, in fact, I'm trying to take Jello's advice to heart, of all people, Jello, which is try to make it better every time. Don't make the same record a billion times. Do what you do best, obviously, but like, okay, if you're gonna write like this next thing I'm writing for the Darts, and you're the first person to hear it, they're all Halloween themed songs. It's like a Halloween record, okay?
Okay.
And so for each song, I'm trying to make it a little creepy and a little spooky. And so I have to like think outside of the box. Like, this isn't just a big fuzz, distortion record like usual. Like, how do I make this creepy? And so I'm adding a little toy piano part way on top that you can barely hear that's just a little twisted. And I'm adding a weird little theremin thing in the bridge that you can barely hear that sounds like wind or whatever. I'm trying to keep it interesting. I'm trying to do something new all the time. And it's very nuanced. Like, people maybe don't know this, they or care, but to me, those are big changes. Like,
I
you
think
can't,
it's
I'm
perfect
not
for the
following the
darts.
formula. To me, I'm not following the formula. So I would say it's never done. It's always a work in progress. And the person I am today probably isn't the person I'm going to be in 5 years. I'm probably going to live in a whole new place and have all new people around me. And it's never going to change. I hope, I hope it's a fluid process. It's always evolving.
I love how you've become so manic on stage. I've watched so many clips of you with the organ laying on top of you. Is that actually a Farfisa that you? It is a
Yeah.
Farfisa,
The
yeah.
Farfisa Fast 3. It's a different model than like what Jake plays in Lords of Avance. It's a different model than anybody that I know plays. But it's the same one I've always played with the Love Me Nots, and it just I have to give credit to Michael for discovering it, but it's really lightweight. And I mean lightweight, it's
Wait a
50
minute, the
pounds
same actual organ you've had the whole time?
the whole time. I mean, I have two now. I have one
Well,
in
you
Europe
see,
and one here, but they're the same ones I've always used.
the Charms used to bring three Farfisas on the road with them because one would break, then the other one would break, and then they'd have to find people. But you haven't had that problem?
It's a different model. That's all I can say. And
Wow.
I mean, the leg has broken off. We've had that welded on a few times in different weird places. I got to tell you this. The last time it broke was last summer. We were in France and it broke like 2 hours before the set. And
Uh-oh.
Ludo, my agent, sends out this frantic message. I need a welder in where were we? In Rennes, France, or whatever, this great music town. And he's like, I need a welder now. And this guy writes back and he's like, okay, I'm an artist. I work on gargoyles on the tops of cathedrals, but my studio is right next to the venue. So bring the Farfisa over right before the set, and I'll weld it on in between my freaking gargoyle jobs. And so he does it and throws the thing on stage. There's a video of this where I'm bringing it on stage. The crowd is already assembled, and I'm like, "Hi, everybody. Give me a second." I'm like, this just got welded. We're still cooling it off.
It just got welded. There's
And this
always
guy, and he's the coolest guy, and he writes to me from the tops of cathedrals to this day because we're friends now, and like the weirdest stuff. But yeah, this thing it doesn't break. We toured in Italy where they made these things in Ravenna, Italy, the Farfisa factory.
yeah,
You know, now they only make doorbells and intercoms.
no more Farfisas. Oh
And so
my.
I'm taking my picture outside like the Farfisa sign, and there's guys are probably like, this girl just loves doorbells. But like it was the Farfisa company, and these old dudes all came to our show that night, and they were some of the original factory guys that used to work for Farfisa
That's
that
amazing.
were very upset at the way I was handling it. But they were really cool. And I was like, you guys made this incredible product. And they were like, we know.
Wait a
We know.
minute, they were upset at the way you were handling it?
Yeah.
You mean?
You know, I take the top off of it and everything. And they're like, give that to me. And they're holding it during this.
Just because it looks like you're having sex with the Farfisa on
Well,
stage?
I'm not. But yeah, they were not
I
happy
didn't
with
say
it.
you were. I said it
No,
looked
but
that
they
way.
they like weren't happy that it was like being disassembled
Yeah.
and stuff. Like, don't do that.
Oh
But
my
I'm like, look,
gosh.
the leather strap is still on. The leather strap that you guys put on there in 1968 is still on there. So there you go.
Okay, so back to the darts. You're going to be going on this massive US tour. I think it seems to me like the biggest one I've seen you guys do in terms of like day after day after day. No weekend here, weekend there. It's like
It's
full
massive.
on.
To be honest, like again, without going into any gossip, there were obstacles to doing this before in the US. And so now with the new lineup, I don't have these obstacles that I had. So now, like my bookers are thrilled because they're like, yay, we can do the US finally. And so we're doing lots of US for the first time ever. We're doing what? I don't know, a zillion shows in June, a
Everything. I
zillion shows
look,
in
yeah.
September, and Europe all through the middle. So basically, starting this Thursday until like November, I'm kind of booked.
Okay, so is it the US till August and then record
It's
and
the
then
no,
Europe?
it's the US in June.
Okay.
What's left of June now, we do all the US. We do the Midwest US. And then we have one day off. We repack our suitcases and we fly to Europe, Croatia. And we do all of
Croatia.
Croatia and we do Portugal and the UK and Scotland and all these places. And that takes us into August. And then the darts come home and I do a week in France with Black Viiolet, recording and touring. And then I come back. And then we do the west coast of the US. The darts go on the west coast. And then all of September, we do the east coast of the US for a month, all the way from, I think Boston might be the highest we're going, Connecticut, I don't know, all the way down to Florida and everywhere in between. And we've never done that ever. So that's going to be, we've never been to Florida or Georgia or like Chattanooga. We've never been to these places. This is going to be so cool.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah,
because a lot of
we're
people
playing,
know.
we're playing Goner Fest. We're doing some really cool stuff in this whole thing. And then the darts come home, finally get a break. And then Black Viiolet goes out for October. We're doing Colorado and the Pacific Northwest and all this stuff, all these festivals. It's going to be great.
I'm so happy for you. I really
Thanks.
am. Thank you. And you know what? I am really, I could say proud. I'm proud of what
You,
you.
you know what? You should, of all people, you get to be proud because you were the very first manager I ever had in my life.
I'm not
And
sure if I
you
was the
were there.
best
Like,
one, but
it doesn't, none of us were our best back then. We didn't, it was a weird, it was a different time, right? It was
I
hard to,
loved working with you though. You were the easiest
yeah. I mean,
person
look at
I
us.
ever
We're
worked
still
with.
friends after all these
Yeah.
years. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
you were really easy to work with, and I know that we had obstacles. Believe me, I had to be the one to cancel things when they didn't work out after we had a weekend tour book because of whatever. But the thing
Broke
is,
my heart every time. Yep.
I
And
know, and I'm happy for you now because let me see, we met in around 2005. You must be like 40 by now, right?
Let's say that. Yeah, that's what we are. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
No,
you don't look a day over 40, so
I'm 55.
oh my God. I knew that, but I didn't want to say that because you
No, I
didn't.
have no, you know what? It's not 55 isn't what it used to be. And
It's not.
it feels great. I feel better than I did when I honestly feel better than I did when I was 30. Like physically, I'm in better condition than
Okay,
I
you
was.
beat cancer, right?
Yeah, I beat cancer and I'm not drinking and I'm taking
And,
care of myself for the first time
and you
ever.
said you're vegan?
Yeah,
We,
5 years.
that, I mean, that's something. And what about exercise? Didn't you say exercise too?
Well, yeah, I mean the band is like a Zumba class every night, but yeah, when I'm off tour, I'm trying to run. I actually did a little too much of it, so I had to take the last few weeks off because I got some tendonitis in my hip and my doctor was like, just take a minute. But yeah, I try to run and I live in a place now where running by the water is amazing. Like the sea lions go with me. It's really cute.
That's
And
awesome.
so yeah, that's what I do. And I don't know, I honestly I'm in a better place than I've ever been. I can truly say that without any hesitation.
I'm so happy for you.
And I think you're in a better place than you've been in a long time too. You look
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm older than 55 too. I'm not telling you how much older,
It
but
doesn't matter. We should be proud of it. Oh my gosh, look at it, you know?
yeah, I'm really excited for you. It's great. Thank you for doing this and crucify me if I'm not there in September.
Oh, you'll be there. I will make sure of it. I'll drive over and pick you up if I have to.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk later.
All right.
Steve.